So, as if the job didn't already sometimes feel like somebody's raking you over the coals, somebody had the great idea to have a team building exercise to actually learn how to walk over coals, hot coals, fire, scary. So, thinking of a scenario like that, I don't know about you, but I want to make sure that somebody has taken the time to cross every single one of the T's and dotted every single one of the I's in that story before it becomes a horror story and I'm the star. And I want to make sure that I have an opportunity to talk to somebody who's done this, who's been there, who has seen how it goes. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in talking to the one who did a Google search and thought this was a really cool idea. No. And I also don't want to talk to somebody who has gone through 1 or 2 days of training, has a pretty piece of paper that certified them, and now all of a sudden they think that they can guide me through this. I'm sorry, no. I want to talk to somebody who has actually done it, who has seen it go wrong so that they know what not to do. That's really important because otherwise this is going to hurt. And somebody who has experience doing it and knows what works well. I want to listen to them. I want to understand from them. I want to learn from them. And just in case I'm the one in a million exception, I want to make sure that we have somebody from paramedics around really close by so that we can take care of any accidents. Hopefully, that will be none, though, because we've done our homework. And that's the point. Readiness when engaging in a transformation, I don't care what the transformation is. It could be Agile, it could be AI, it could be a technology, it could be HR, whatever the transformation, doesn't matter. We're not talking about just purchasing something off the shelf. We're talking about tinkering with the very mechanics, with the very bones, with the very structure, with the very thing that we need in order to work and succeed. And if we're going to change things, which is great, it's great to reach a moment that we have realized we can only go so far with what we've got. We need new things. Fantastic realization. If we're going to do that, let's make sure that we have everything that we need in order to succeed. So, independent of the details of whatever transformation you're engaging in, I'm proposing to look at 6 critical questions, to have answers for those before you decide, yes, we're ready to move forward, or, hey, you know what, better take a second look before we take the next step. And if you stick around to the end, I'll give you a bonus one, which arguably is really the biggest one, and somebody should take a look at that one before having the other conversations. So, what is the cost of not asking these questions? What could be at stake? Literally, the entire company, the entire initiative, at the very least. The investment that we've made in both time, people, effort, money can go down the drain. So, even if you don't care about the details that we're talking about here, you probably care about the money. If you don't want to see your investment go down the drain, let's make sure that we take a close look before taking the next steps. Because the cost of failure is huge. And in order to navigate through this safely, we need to make an honest self assessment. We need to take a look at where we are today and then decide, is this the right time to move forward? So, when we look at what we need to be prepared for, the first question would be around culture. Do we have a cultural foundation that supports the change? So, is there enough in our culture that is open to learning? Do we have a learning or a culture? Do we have a culture that supports innovation? That might sound like a strange question, but there may be not nefarious, but actually really good reasons why organizations may not be ready for that. There could be a prestige, a generational tradition that's standing in the way from making any transformative changes. I'm not saying don't make those changes. I'm saying take a look first and the importance of that generational experience and pride, and take a look at it and see how far it can be challenged. It may not be possible to challenge it in order to transform. So if that's the case, define what's possible, do that. Then you'll be in a different position. And maybe from that vantage point, you'll be able to continue forward. But at least for now, set expectations and set goals that align with what you're capable of moving forward with. Having a learning organization means that you have an organization that has the capability and has the habits of continuously learning. Many organizations don't have that because many organizations are so caught in the plan, do, plan, do, plan, do cycle that they're not really changing. They're not moving. They're not learning anything. They're so busy doing that they're not updating their skills, their knowledge, their abilities. So to expect that kind of culture to jump into a massive transformational change, that's not realistic. You're going to run into massive obstacles in the process of trying to roll out this transformation. So take a close look at your culture. Do you have the right DNA for that? I'll have a video for that later. So is there psychological safety? Psychological safety is a critical one because as we move forward with the transformation, people will make mistakes, guaranteed. Nobody learns how to ride the bicycle day one without falling. You will make mistakes. There will be accidents. If there isn't psychological safety to deal with those, people are going to be very gun shy. They're going to be very reserved. They're not going to want to take those steps. And that's going to become an impediment to the transformation. And if there isn't a trust foundation, trust in leadership that we're moving in the right direction, and trust in the rest of the company that we're going to do what's necessary in order to get us through this, that's not a good setup in order to move forward. So there are many cultural elements that can either work in our favor to make this transformation successful or can work against and undermine it. Next, I want to take a look at leadership. And from a leadership perspective, is the leadership engaged? That's a critical one. So many times I have seen transformations that are not going well or altogether go very badly. And one of the things that I've observed repeatedly is that leadership wasn't close enough to the transformation. Leadership had been supportive, in some cases, very supportive. Perhaps somebody had talked to them and explained to them what was necessary. And in a genuinely supportive way, they agreed. They said, yes, let's move forward and let's do it. But the way that it was handled was more of a transactional acquisition. And it was just put in somebody's Gantt chart. It's like, we're going to start here, we're going to be done by here, and these are going to be the results. Great, fine, go get it done. That's not what we want to see happening. Because consider that any transformation is going to require change. What is that change? And the leadership needs to be asking, if we're changing, at the very least, even if you just want to be selfish, ask, well, how is this going to affect me? How does this relate to me? How am I going to change? Tell me that before I agree and I support this. And many times there hasn't been any awareness that leadership needed to change in any way. In fact, there was an expectation that it wouldn't. This is up to the teams to do. No, the changes permeate throughout the entire organization. In fact, some of the bigger and most profound changes start with leadership. So when leadership has this very distant relationship to transformations, that's a red flag. That's something that should give us cause to pause. If there isn't experience in change management, I've been frankly very shocked over the past 20 years looking at Agile transformations to realize the degree of lack of change management skill and expertise in organizations, large organizations, worldwide organizations. No, it's not there. It really has been very transactional, just purchasing capabilities and without looking at the profound ways in which these acquisitions are changing the DNA of the company. And we want to have leadership that has vision and commitment to see things through. So this isn't just something that is engaged in. We don't engage in transformations just on a potential. There needs to be a very clear vision that says that we will get to this new landscape, and we're committed to get to that because this is critical to our future, which means that along the way, any impediments that come about, we're going to do whatever it takes to get through those because this is critical to our future success. And then we need to take a look at our skills. Do we have the necessary skills? Now, let's be clear here and let's be careful. When I talk about the skills, I'm not talking about the skills that we're going to acquire. That's the whole reason for the transformation. So no, don't look at that. Okay, that's the result of engaging in a transformation. What I'm talking about is, do we have the skills necessary to implement and be successful in the transformation? That's the critical piece because transformations need something. There needs to be something to support the transformation. Sometimes it's technical skills that are needed. Sometimes it's soft skills. So, for example, If you're engaging in considering engaging in an AI transformation and you're still running Windows 95, eh, uh-uh, no, you need a different transformation first. Then we can have the conversation about an AI transformation. Or you could decide, it's possible, you could decide that you're going to do both. But if you're going to do that, now we're entering into the kaikaku space. I did a video on that before. And that's huge. If the idea of walking over coals is scary, this is even scarier. Okay, I'm not saying it's not possible. Sometimes organizations manage to corner themselves into a place where only a huge just wipe slate clean and move forward is possible. And if you're in that situation, okay, fine. Take a look at what Kaikaku is going to take. But if you're looking at more of a gradual, which is safer, it's less risky. There's huge risk involved in any transformation. But if you want a less risky and more palatable, difficult, challenging, and safer journey, you're talking about Kaizen, taking incremental steps. You can't be taking incremental steps in a transformation while you are at the same time completely revamping technical and soft skills. You really need to have at least the minimum technical and soft skills already strong and adaptable. You need to have enough capacity for the continuation of learning built on top of what you have. If you're not there, take care of that first, then come back to this. Then we want to talk about technology and infrastructure. In here is, do you have the current capability for growth? Like I mentioned, if you're running on Windows 95, please take a look care of that first. Many implementations, many transformations, whether they are technical or non-technical, have some basic technology infrastructure needs, especially in a global world like we have today. Where many companies are multinational, for example. Well, please make sure that you have the capability to have good, effective remote communications with everybody, so that the moments that you need everybody together to listen to them say messages at the same time and to engage in activities at the same time, that it's possible for you to do that. So take a look at your technology infrastructure and make sure that it is ready, it is prepared, and that it is scalable. Because the transformation is going to shift us from a current state to a future state. And the whole purpose of transforming is to get us into something bigger and better. If your technology infrastructure is not scalable, that's going to create an impediment for the transformation. As these transformations requires more and more, your technology may not be able to keep up with it. And you'll only discover when you're in the middle of it and you end up delaying or worse, derailing your transformation. And then we want to make sure that we have the support systems. Remember, you don't want to be the one in a million that it doesn't go well, and you want to make sure the paramedics are around. Yeah, these are your support systems. Now, your support systems come in internal and external form. And when we're talking about internal, this is another common mistake that I see. Many times, the people who are selected or are put in charge of transformations are internal to the company. The mind that created the problem can't be the one to solve the problem. I'm not necessarily labeling everything a problem, but when you have a current way of doing things and you want to change that, you need to already have changed yourself in order to help others through the change. You can't be the one who has already always been in that mindset and expect to change it. So differently, you can't take people internally and make them the leaders for your transformation unless they have already gone through it and they've demonstrated proficiency at it. Like I said at the beginning, this is not about send somebody to a class quickly and then they come back with a certificate and now they're the ones who are leading your transformations. No, that doesn't work. You want to have those people who are real experts, who know this, who have been through it, who have seen things go wrong, so that they can be the ones to warn you, you know what, don't want to go down that road. You want to take this other option. So you want a combination of internal support mechanisms. Why? Working with external support mechanisms. Why? The internal ones are familiar with your organization. They're the ones who understand the DNA of your organization, who have been there long enough, and who can help guide wherever we have a specific change. In talking to the external ones, these two need to be working together and saying, Oh, you're going to try to do that. Good luck. This place is not the place to be doing that. Why? And now we can have a conversation. What are the challenges? Because they understand. They know the psychology. They understand people on the ground, and they know where this is going to work and where this is not going to work for people. We need to get through it. We need to figure out how to get through it, because if we don't transform. So it's very important to have people who understand what's happening in the organization, working with those who are helping us transform it. And together, the two of them figure out the incremental steps to get us to the destination. If those two are not working too closely together, that's another reason for derailment. Because invariably, the internal ones are fighting for the political, perpetuating the political systems that already exist in the company, the mindsets, the technologies, the way that we've always done things. That's something that we hear all the time. This is the way that we do it here. Okay. Well, yes, that's the reason why we're here, to change that. We're doing a transformation to change that. Let's understand how you do it right now. That's applying the fallacy of Chesterton's fence. Have a video on that too. And let's make sure that we understand it before we change it. And now the external supports are going to help us figure out from this current state, how do we get to the future state? These two need to be working together. And another form of support is having sufficient facilitation and moderation. Facilitation and moderation are two different skills. And facilitation is really important to make sure that there's always a flow of communication, that the ideas from everybody have an opportunity to be surfaced so that we don't end up hiding things that could potentially become problematic down the road. And that we then take all of those ideas, and obviously we can't implement everybody's idea. We need to come to some consensus of what we're going to do. This process of going from vast amount of information, collecting as much information as possible, having as broad a view of whatever it is that we're looking at, and then distilling it into an actionable next step, this process is a process of facilitation. We need a lot of people to do that, to help us do that, because through any transformation, there's going to be a lot of discovery, a lot of, oh, we're heading in this direction. We need to look at this, this, and that. How are we going to do that? Somebody needs to have those conversations. We all need to bring that to the table. And then we need to figure out how to take the next steps. Facilitation is really important. And moderation. Moderation is really helpful when you have conflict and you need to resolve it somehow. These are people who have very specialized skills to help us bring down the frustration, bring down the pressure to a point where we can have effective and productive conversations to help us resolve whatever it is that's affecting us, whatever roadblock, whatever wall we've hit along the way. So these are support systems that we need to have in place in order to make sure that we're prepared to move on along the transformation path. And we need to have the right organizational attitude. Are you open to the change and its risks? So first of all, I've already mentioned, this is the way that we've always done it. This is the way that we do it here. That's a mindset that's locked. That's not looking, that's not open to considering alternatives. This is what's always worked, and that's the safe thing. And it makes sense. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. If you've made it at your job for a long time, in many organizations, decades, and you've always done things a particular way, why are you changing it? That's risky. That it could go wrong, and if it goes wrong, what happens to my job? That brings a lot of anxiety. So if we're not open to making change because we're so afraid, transformation is not going to work. One way or another, people are going to figure out the ways to say, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. We need to be able to get past that. Otherwise, we can't transform. We're not ready. And we need to be willing to accept some risk, because there is risk. Anytime that we change something, there's a risk that something's going to go wrong. How are we going to manage through that? It's not how we're going to guarantee that nothing goes wrong. That's not a good setup. That's not a good way to have a good plan to make sure that this is going to be successful. It's having the mindset of this is the way that we're going to deal with challenges, with failures, with issues as they arise to get us through it. That's a really important mindset to have the openness to it. If it has to be perfect, nobody gets a transformation on the first shot, 100%. That just doesn't happen. So everybody going into it needs to be aware of this. And as part of that for organizational attitude, we need to be really serious and really craving having this innovative perspective, fostering innovation, looking at things in a way that can be better, can be fresh, can be different. If all that we value is for generations, hundreds of years, this is how we've always done it, and we value the way that it's always been done, okay, then you need to stop and think, then why are you trying to transform? You really need to have a very good answer for that before you take another step. And as I promised, an extra one. And this has to deal with understand what you're buying. Avoid the snake oil purchases. And sadly, I have to say that I've seen a lot of that where people have been sold into an idea, into an ideal, and they were thinking that they were purchasing one thing, and in reality, they were purchasing something else. I'll go into the details of what happened with Agile in a future video, and I want to stay on the positive track. But the point in here is that we've known about snake oil solutions, the panaceas to everything, and we all know to be careful with that. Why are we engaging in these massive transformations, hugely expensive, fortunes spent into them, and we're not taking a close look and figure out, is this snake oil? Why? I don't understand that. We need to understand what it is that we're buying into clearly before we take steps forward. That's critical. So this is part of crossing all those T's and dotting all those I's, making sure that the path that we're going in is going to give us something that we truly value. And once we understand what it is that we truly value, and once that we understand the steps necessary, what's required of us and what's required of the rest of the company, and what we're going to get out of it, and we're clear about that, now we can say that we have a clear North Star, that desired outcome from this. And now we're ready to take those next steps if we agree with everything that's necessary. If we're not, then don't do it. Don't do it. Take the steps. Make sure that you do your homework. So there's a lot of skills that we need to develop along the way. I've talked about several of those. And there's this mention of a company DNA. So is your company DNA ready to engage in transformations? Well, take a look at one of these, and I'll catch you there, and I'll tell you all about it. See you the next time.